Picture this. It's September 21st, 2021, and you're a big wig executive at one of the largest sports brands in the world, Adidas. You finally decided to dip your toes into a recently exploding market with big potential, pickleball, and today's the day you unveil your brand new, state-of-the-art premium pickleball paddles. You're a multi-billion-dollar international company with some of the most iconic branding in the world, and, in all honesty, there's no legitimate competition to threaten you in this blooming market. Today could be the start of a new goldmine for your company, the beginning of a wise investment in the future. You have the capital, brand recognition, resources, connections, and manpower to take the pickleball world by storm and solidify yourself as one of the sport's biggest players instantly. How could you possibly fail? Adidas Pickleball has only been a player in the pickleball paddle market for a couple of months now, but it's already obvious that the initial launch of their products has flopped pretty hard for a company of their reputation and size. So that begs the question, what the hell happened here? Well, in order to understand that, we need to take a little history lesson on Adidas's past in manufacturing sporting equipment, particularly tennis rackets. Adidas has a long and rich history in the sport of tennis, going all the way back to the early 1930s. Though it was their apparel and tennis shoes that initially made waves in the tennis world, Adidas also had a huge success on their hands in the racket market. The launch of Adidas rackets in the 70s and later iterations through the new decade saw the first generation of Adidas rackets hit the tennis scene. Though they were generally well regarded, Adidas found itself increasingly losing market share until, in 1990, they decided to step away from racket manufacturing altogether. However, this divorce from racket manufacturing would prove to be only temporary. In 2008, Adidas made the bold decision to once again try their hand at making a new series of rackets to compete in a budding market. With 3 brand new rackets set to launch the next year targeting all demographics in the midst of a boom of demand for tennis products, Adidas seemed to have a surefire hit on their hands. But in an ironic twist, Adidas's triumphant return to racket production quickly turned into a massive failure for the company. Their revolutionary rackets rapidly fell into obscurity and were quietly discontinued a year after their launch. Yikes. Now, the failure of the second stab at the racket market can be attributed to numerous different factors, both within and out of Adidas's direct control. And if you're inclined to have a deeper look at the failure of those rackets, I definitely recommend watching Colt Tennis's video on the topic. Most important to our discussion, though, are 2 key things: Adidas's poor marketing and their manufacturer. Nobody would blame you if, at their launch, you never even knew that Adidas produced a new line of rackets. While they weren't exactly hidden from view, Adidas didn't really make any serious effort to push their rackets' exposure. There were no ad campaigns, player-sponsored, or otherwise any direct effort from the company to broadcast to the wider tennis world that Adidas were, in fact, making rackets again. Adidas largely relied on their vendors to promote their product, which, unsurprisingly, didn't exactly work out too well in the long run. Another concerning issue was the fact that the rackets Adidas were selling weren't even manufactured by Adidas. Their production was outsourced entirely to a third-party Chinese company. The only thing Adidas about those rackets were the licensed branding they sported. This fact, as I'm sure most could infer, led to a rather subpar product, as little to no actual in-house design input from Adidas seems to have made its way through production, especially seeing as unbranded models of Adidas rackets appeared after their early demise. But what does any of this have to do with their pickleball paddles, I hear you ask? Well, dear viewer, unlike you or I, it seems Adidas hasn't exactly learned from their foiled escapades in the tennis realm, and seem to be repeating the same mistakes once again. The only direct advertising for their presence in pickleball seems to come from a small spin-off Adidas Instagram account. It has less than 300 followers, and the main Adidas account doesn't even follow it. There is no mainstream marketing or promotions, No pro endorsements, no special deals or giveaways, no ads during live events, nothing. There's just one Instagram account and some secondhand promotion from their vendors. Sound familiar? In light of this, it's almost certain that Adidas paddles are produced almost exactly like their tennis rackets were. Seeing as Adidas has no prior pickleball experience or existing infrastructure, it's likely they just licensed their brand out to another overseas third-party manufacturer. Of the few actual reviews there are for the products online, it seems that the reaction of many can be called mixed at best. Some love, or at least don't outright hate, the paddles, and others are noticing shoddy quality and durability. No matter what, I don't think anyone is going after an Adidas paddle right now and legitimately calling it a premium quality paddle ready to compete with pickleball's heavy hitters. All of this has manifested itself in low sales and generally lower visibility. I mean, according to their primary seller, Adidas paddles are literally the least popular paddles on Pickleball Central, and in a rather unscientific poll I conducted on the Pickleball subreddit right when Adidas broke out onto the scene, hardly anyone was actually taking the plunge and buying an Adidas paddle. For such a large brand, those are embarrassingly bad signs. Alarm bells absolutely need to be sounding for whoever is in charge of this branch of Adidas. But what can Adidas do to salvage the situation? Well, first of all, Adidas needs to do more to actively promote to their target demographic. The most obvious and effective tactic would be to swoop in and sponsor a handful of top-performing pros. If someone like Ben Johns were to be entirely decked out in Adidas gear and regularly use one of their flagship paddles, it would definitely make some waves. Adidas certainly has the money and experience to make those kinds of moves if they so desired. Pickleball is still a very young sport, and the money invested in it are peanuts compared to the juggernaut of a business Adidas is. They absolutely would stand to benefit if their branding was plastered all over the top echelons of play. Speaking of being around top-tier players, if Adidas were to become a major sponsor of Pro Tour events, their exposure to their core demographics might just be increased even higher. Moreover, targeted ads online might also aid their product's exposure. Pretty standard stuff, really. Just think of the plenty of other staples in pickleball's manufacturing world who have done the same. Selkirk, Paddletech, and so on. Pickleball is still developing itself at large, so again, not much effort would be required for Adidas to effectively market itself to the player base of about 4 million. Adidas Pickleball might even want to go so far as a soft relaunch of their paddles, with updated designs and higher quality manufacturers. Preferably, they would be the ones actually producing their own products, but seeing as pickleball isn't even 0.5% of their business, at least hiring out another premium manufacturer to produce their paddles to replace the seemingly cheap, generic paddles they produce today would certainly aid their reputation. Also, redesigning their appearance might be helpful too. I mean, I know they're based off of their paddle counterparts design-wise, but goodness, their look is polarizing. I, for one, am not a fan. Perhaps a more sleek, minimalist design would serve to fit the brand more than their current crop. Even then, likely none of this will end up happening. It's up in the air where Adidas goes from here. It's pretty obvious that they're testing the market with a safe launch of these seemingly inoffensive products, mirrored off of the success seen in pickleball's European cousin, paddle. I just don't think that if Adidas continues with their passive testing that they'll be met with encouraging results. There's a lot of money to be made in pickleball, and if done right, Adidas could easily position themselves to be the paddle producer of the future and dominate the sport when it finds itself alongside some of the larger players in the global sports space. Their early actions here might be the difference between capitalizing on a potentially massive market or withdrawing in one of the most embarrassing failures in the sporting goods industry. The ball is still very much in Adidas's court. Thanks for watching.